A gentle heart in unexpected places. The fluorescent lights hummed softly in the hallway of Morrison Technologies, casting their familiar glow across the polished marble floors. James Mitchell pushed his cleaning cart with the steady rhythm of a man who'd found peace in routine. At 62, with silver hair and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners, he'd been the night janitor here for nearly 15 years. Most people barely noticed him, and that suited James just fine. He'd learned long ago that quiet work had its own dignity. Every evening he'd arrive at 7, change into his Navy uniform, and methodically work his way through each floor of the gleaming tower. The younger employees rushing past him had no idea that the gentle man emptying their wastebaskets had once been a paramedic, that his steady hands had saved more lives than he could count. That chapter had closed after his wife Margaret passed. The emergency calls, the sirens, the constant adrenaline, it all became too much. So James had stepped back, chosen simplicity. Now he found satisfaction in creating order from chaos, in making sure people came to clean, safe spaces each morning. This particular evening started like any other. James was on the executive floor, quietly dusting the reception area, when he heard it. Small footsteps running fast. He turned to see a little girl, maybe 7 years old, with dark curls bouncing as she ran. Her pink dress was askew, one white sock had slipped down to her ankle, and her face was streaked with tears. "Please," she gasped, grabbing James's sleeve with both hands. "Please, you have to help. They beat my mom. She's dying. Please." James felt his old training snap into focus, but he kept his voice calm and gentle. "Slow down, sweetheart. Take a breath. Where's your mom?" The parking garage. Level 3. She fell and won't wake up." The child's voice broke into sobs. James knelt down, looking into her frightened eyes. "What's your name, honey?" Emma Carson. My daddy's the boss here, but he's in a meeting and those men, they hurt my mom. Carson. Thomas Carson, the CEO. James had seen him occasionally, always moving quickly, phone to his ear. But this wasn't the time for such thoughts. "Emma, I need you to listen to me carefully. Can you do that?" James kept his voice steady, reassuring. When she nodded, he continued, "I'm going to help your mom. But first, I need you to go to the security desk right there and tell Mr. Patterson what happened. Can you be brave and do that for me?" "But my mom, I promise you, I'm going to take care of her. I know exactly what to do. But you need to get help too, okay?" Something in his voice must have convinced her. Emma nodded and ran toward the security station, while James moved quickly to the elevator, his heart steady despite the urgency. Some things you never forget, he thought. Some skills stay in your bones. The parking garage was dimly lit, all concrete and shadows. James found her on level 3, near a silver sedan. A woman in her mid-30s, elegant even in distress, lay crumpled on the ground. Her breathing was shallow, and there was blood matted in her blonde hair. A designer purse lay several feet away, its contents scattered. James knelt beside her, his hands already checking for injuries with practiced efficiency. Pulse weak but steady. Possible head trauma. He gently stabilized her neck, speaking softly even though she couldn't hear him. "You're going to be okay. Your little girl is safe. I've got you." He noticed bruising on her arms, defensive wounds. Emma had said they beat my mom. This wasn't just a fall, but those questions could wait. Right now, this woman needed him to be what he'd once been, a guardian between life and death. Footsteps echoed behind him. Security guards, followed by a tall man in an expensive suit, his face pale with panic. Thomas Carson. "Sarah." He started to rush forward, but James held up a hand. "Don't move her," James said firmly. "Possible spinal injury." "Ambulance?" "On the way," one of the guards replied. Thomas Carson stared at the janitor kneeling beside his wife, seeing him perhaps for the first time. What are you doing?" "Keeping her stable. I'm a former paramedic." James didn't look up, his focus entirely on Sarah. She's been struck multiple times. Head trauma, possibly fractured ribs. "When did this happen?" I don't know," Emma said. Thomas's voice cracked. "Is she going to make it?" "She's strong," James said quietly. "Her breathing is steady. That's good. Just talk to her. Let her know you're here. Thomas knelt on the other side of his wife, careful not to touch her. Sarah, baby, I'm here. Emma's safe. You're going to be fine. His voice shook, and James saw the fear in this powerful man's eyes. The same fear he'd seen in countless families over the years. Money and position meant nothing when someone you loved was hurt. The minutes stretched until sirens wailed in the distance. James kept monitoring Sarah's vitals, adjusting her position slightly to ease her breathing. When the paramedics arrived, he gave them a clear, concise report that made them look at him with recognition. One professional to another. You kept her spine protected, the lead paramedic said approvingly. Good work. As they loaded Sarah onto the stretcher, Emma appeared, clutching her father's hand. She looked at James with wide eyes. You saved her? The doctors will take care of that, sweetheart. I just made sure she stayed comfortable until they got here. But Emma pulled away from her father and wrapped her arms around James's waist, burying her face in his uniform. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for believing me. James gently patted her back, his eyes stinging. You were very brave. Your mom is going to be so proud. 3 days later, James was surprised to find Thomas Carson waiting by his cleaning cart. The CEO looked tired but relieved. Mr. Mitchell, do you have a moment? They sat in the empty cafeteria, two men from different worlds connected by one frightening night. Sarah's going to recover fully, Thomas said. Thanks to you. The doctor said that the way you stabilized her, it prevented paralysis. If she'd been moved wrong, James nodded slowly. I'm glad. How's Emma doing? Nightmares, but she's tough. Like her mother. Thomas paused. The police caught the men. It was a robbery attempt. They saw Sarah's car, thought she was an easy target, his hands clenched into fists. I almost lost her. But you didn't, James said gently. That's what matters. Why didn't you ever tell anyone about your medical background? James smiled faintly. Nobody asked. And it didn't seem important. I'm content with what I do now. Thomas shook his head in wonder. You saved my wife's life and you're content being a janitor? With respect, Mr. Carson, I'm content being myself. I've learned that every job has dignity if you do it with care. I spent 25 years racing toward emergencies. Now I find peace in slower rhythms. Different seasons of life, that's all. Thomas was quiet for a long moment. My father was a mechanic, he said finally. Worked with his hands his whole life. I spent years building this company, proving I could be more than that. But you know what? I haven't been happy. Always chasing the next deal, the next success. I barely knew my own daughter's favorite color until this week. He looked at James. You chose peace over prestige. I think I've had it backwards. Not backwards, James said kindly. Just different paths. Your work matters too. You employ hundreds of people, support families. That's nothing to diminish. But maybe, he paused, choosing his words carefully, maybe success doesn't always have to be measured by how high you climb. The weeks that followed brought unexpected changes. Sarah came by to thank James personally, her arm still in a sling but her smile warm and genuine. She brought Emma, who'd drawn him a picture of a superhero with a mop. That's you, Emma explained seriously. You save people. James hung the picture in his small apartment, next to photos of Margaret. It made him smile every morning. But the biggest surprise came from Thomas. The CEO started appearing in the building at odd hours, not for meetings, but to talk. Sometimes he'd find James on his rounds and just walk alongside him, asking questions about life, about loss, about finding purpose. How did you do it? Thomas asked one evening. After your wife passed, how did you keep going? James paused in his work, leaning on his mop handle. Margaret and I had 38 years together. Good years. And she taught me that love isn't diminished by loss. It just changes form. I carry her with me every day. In the kindness I try to show, in the care I take with small things. She'd have liked that. Thomas nodded slowly. I've been so afraid of losing Sarah that I've been holding on too tight. Working late, building security, making money to protect them. But I've been missing the actual living. It's never too late to change, James said gently. Every day is a chance to choose differently. 6 months later, James was preparing to retire. His knees weren't what they used to be, and he'd saved enough to live simply. Maybe do some volunteering. On his last night, he found the executive floor transformed. Emma had helped decorate with streamers, and the staff had gathered people he'd greeted for years, whose offices he'd cleaned, who'd finally taken the time to see him. Thomas stood up to speak, Sarah beside him holding Emma's hand. "James Mitchell taught me something I'd forgotten," he said. "That the measure of a person isn't their title or their salary. It's how they treat others when nobody's watching. It's the dignity they bring to everyday moments. James, you saved my wife's life, but more than that, you reminded me what really matters." He paused, emotional. "I've made some changes. I'm home for dinner now. Emma and I have a Saturday morning tradition, just us. And I've started a program here at Morrison Technologies. We're partnering with retirement communities to hire people who want to keep working, who have skills and wisdom to share. We're calling it the Second Seasons Initiative." James felt his throat tighten. "That's wonderful, Thomas. Truly." Emma ran up and hugged him. "Will you come visit us? Please." "I'd be honored, sweetheart." As the small party continued, James looked around at the faces. Security guards, executive assistants, even the young tech workers who'd barely noticed him before. They were all there, sharing stories about small kindnesses he didn't even remember doing. A word of encouragement here, a patient ear there, simple gestures that had meant more than he'd known. Later, as he pushed his cart toward the storage room for the last time, Thomas walked with him. "You know, I offered you a position, consultant, medical advisor, anything you wanted." James smiled. "I know, and I appreciate it, but I'm ready for my next season. Volunteering at the community center, spending time with my grandchildren, maybe teaching some first aid classes. Smaller circles, quieter days." "You're a rare man, James Mitchell." "No," James said thoughtfully. "Just an old one who's learned that life is precious. Every moment, every person, every chance to help. That's the real wealth." They shook hands, and James walked out into the cool evening air, leaving behind the gleaming tower and 15 years of quiet service. But he took with him something more valuable, the knowledge that kindness ripples outward in ways we never see, that dignity isn't given by others but chosen by ourselves, and that sometimes the most important thing we can offer another person is simply our steady presence in their darkest moment. Emma's picture still hung on his wall at home, a superhero with a mop. James chuckled every time he saw it. Maybe she was right, he thought. Maybe we all have the power to save each other, in small ways and large, if we just pay attention and care. That night, James slept peacefully, his heart full. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, new ways to serve. But tonight, he was simply grateful. For the unexpected friendships, for the reminder that his skills still mattered, for the beautiful truth that life's greatest moments often come disguised in ordinary hours. And somewhere across town, Emma Carson lay sleeping, no longer haunted by nightmares, secure in the knowledge that heroes come in all forms. Sometimes in Navy work uniforms, with kind eyes and steady hands, ready to help when it matters most.